America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make a suggestion, a strong suggestion to all the conservative organizations out there, all the organizations that have sprung up over the years, over the decades, to defend our society and our culture, to defend our republic, who have brought lawsuits, who have issued white papers, who sent speakers all over the country, who've been on radio and on a television, making the case for Americanism. You owe it to yourselves, your patrons, your donors, your members, and mostly to the country to speak out boldly and to speak out now. We're up against a vile, poisonous movement on the left and a vile, poisonous movement on the radical right. And when I say radical right, I don't mean conservatives, I don't mean constitutionalists, I don't mean libertarians, I don't mean any of that. I mean fascists, thugs, neo-Nazis and their like. I want to say to the heads of our colleges and universities, those who run private institutions in particular, I want to say to those who run think tanks, legal foundations, websites, publications. This is not difficult. If you believe in our country. Some of you have said, not many, but some, that you are friends with Tucker Carlson. Or you've been friends with Tucker Carlson, but Tucker Carlson has left you. He's not your friend. Today he was supporting and promoting Mandan, trashing traditional Christians, Jews, at it again. Don't you owe it at least to your own conscience, your own morality, to say something? Free speech, that cuts both ways. Free speech doesn't just exist for neo-Nazis and Klansmen, for Marxists and Islamists. Free speech exists, as we know better than anybody, to counter these people. Because the truth is, if they ever took control of anything, free speech would cease to exist. We're in a war, obviously not a shooting war, not a military war, but we are in a war, and people need to take sides. You either believe in the country, the founding, the principles, the Declaration and the Constitution, capitalism, private property rights, or you don't. America First is all about America. That doesn't mean we don't have allies that we support. But these people, they're attacking the core of our country. Mondami's victory speech the other night was appalling. You know, I've been accused of supporting this so-called replacement theory the left used to write about me because I said we need to secure our border, we need to vet our immigrants, they need to assimilate into our system. And until that's done, we need to put a brake on this. Replacement theory. And yet if you listen to Mondami last night, or 2 nights ago, he was touting his movement as replacement, not theory, reality. Marxism and Islam replacing capitalism, the Enlightenment, and Judeo-Christian values that undergird the founding of this country. That doesn't mean people of every faith can't enjoy this country. It just means that's the founding. It is a daunting task, a complicated task now to defeat these people in certain parts of the country and even throughout the country. They have a foothold. They have billionaires like Soros and more. They have massive amounts of foreign money pouring into this country from the Middle East, from communist China and elsewhere. They run our colleges, our universities. They're indoctrinating them into these horrific ideologies for the purpose of destroying the West. And not all, but much, if not most, of the leadership, people you might turn to, have failed you, have failed us. Now is not the time for word salads. Now is not the time for parsing words. Now is not the time to say, yes, I hate this embrace of Stalin and Hitler and the anti-Christianity and anti-Judaism, but there are no buts. We're in the proverbial foxhole. No buts. It's them against us. And that includes on the far left and these radical right-wingers. We have an obligation to our families, to yourself, to all that we have fought for in these various movements and have argued for over the decades. Your children, your grandchildren, they have a right to live in an America that you and I inherited from our ancestors. Can you imagine, after World War II, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, having fought for this country, saved this country, yes, saved Europe, the free world, we're able to finally free the victims who were terrorized in the concentration camps, what was left. If they could hear from Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes or Steve Bannon or or Owens or individuals who platform them? What do you think they would say? What would they say? The over 400,000 men and women who died fighting Hitler. That's the greatest generation. Is it not the greatest generation anymore? A handful of them are alive. Just old men and old women. We're supposed to dismiss them because we have people in college or high school or recent grads. Old men and old women, we don't listen to them. We think about the future. We're thinking about the future. On the left, they physically tear down our monuments and our history. On this neo-Nazi right, they tear them down too. But not physically, because they don't have the guts to do that. No. They're holed up in their basements, somewhere in Maine, suburbs of Chicago, wherever they might be, pulling in tens of millions of dollars to spread the most poisonous, cancerous hate. They're making it much more difficult to fight the left. They're going to make it impossible to win elections and stop the mandamis. These are people who have mental, psychological problems. They are sick. They are unhinged. And those who claim to be friends of theirs are not helping them by making excuses for them. Those days are over. They should have been over a long time ago. Every single faith leader, every single president or CEO or executive director of a conservative organization, think tank, legal group, media organization, political group, should be speaking out now, making it abundantly clear that Tucker Carlson and these others don't represent us. They don't represent our family. They don't represent anything we believe in. This isn't about the cult of personality, which is what I'm hearing too often. We're not interested in that. We have a battle on our hands. Unfortunately, we're in a pincer movement here. From the Marxist left and the fascistic neo-Nazi right. I know where you stand, or you wouldn't be in this audience. I know where Mr. and Mrs. America stand. But they're getting into the minds of our children and our grandchildren. We're not assimilating people into our system anymore because the people who control these levers of our culture and society are more and more them. They're trying to make Hitler cool. They're trying now to make Mandami cool. And that's Carlson. And look, he's a punk. But he's illustrative. He's illustrative. Sometimes we make him bigger than he is. He's a punk. He's flesh and blood. And in my view, mentally ill. Without a soul, without an ounce of morality. To say the things he says and to do to our children and grandchildren what he's trying to do. He's not make America great again. A phrase that was coined by Reagan and then wisely embraced by President Trump. He's not peace through strength. He's surrender and isolationism to his friend Putin, to his friend the Qataris, to his friend the Iranians, and now the Islamists. And it's not just him. So if you're listening to this program, you're listening for a reason. If you run an organization, any conservative organization, a faith organization, speak out boldly now. If you've made mistakes, apologize, reverse course before it's too late. Speak out boldly now. Now. Because we people who love freedom, we're not going anywhere. We're going to do pushback now. We're going to counter this. We're going to get the wind at our back, and we're going to build a juggernaut. We're going to embrace one another. We are going to unite against this. It's already happening. It's already happening. It's something I've been trying to organize and push for at least 8 months. Here behind this microphone, on the Blaze platform, on Fox, and throughout. This will not stand. We are not neo-Nazis. We are not Klansmen. We are not Marxists. We're not jihadists. We're not anti-Semites. We're not anti-Christianity. In fact, we're anti all those things. So I say to these people who've asked for donations, who've asked for members, who've gone into court, who run websites and all the rest of it, look in the mirror. Who are you? What are you going to do? The time is now. Right now. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You know, folks, when you look over the long expanse of history, what we're going through as a nation is what every republic that fails goes through if the people don't stand up and push back. Germany was an advanced society, highly educated citizenry. And yet, Nazism, the Third Reich, Hitler, first with a very small group of thugs, then with a small third party, was able to take over the government and eventually take over the country, which was a disaster for Germans, horrendous outcome for Jews. The whole world suffered. Millions died. You can't wait to find out what's going to happen when these elements take hold and start to spread. You gotta stop them right up front. I'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
You know, I love you folks in this audience. I'm blessed. I tell you this all the time. It's a great honor that you show up here when you could be doing other things. But I want you to put all the static aside. I want you to put all the static aside and just listen to me for a minute. Can you imagine being a black person? Day in and day out. Reads, hears, sees that he or she is disparaged constantly as a non-human because of their race. Can you imagine? Of course, you don't have to imagine. It's been done. Can you imagine, though? Think about what those people went through. Think about what they're going through now. Or being a Christian in communist China. Or being a Christian in Nigeria, Sudan, the Congo. Sure death. Or being a Christian in Syria. Can you imagine? And being told you're a subhuman, and being told that you're not loyal to your country, and being called the most vile names to dehumanize you over and over and over again. Imagine if this is happening to any of you in 2025 America. I face this every day. And I'm certainly not alone. I have the ability to fight back. I have a microphone. I have a TV camera. I have a digital platform. Every day, every single day in the United States of America, being called a Hebe and a kike and Israel first, every damn day. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm making a point. Watching people like me being beaten to a pulp because they wear a kippah, that is a yarmulke, or they have the long beards, Orthodox Jews. Can you imagine? In America? Listening to members of the House of Representatives, and some even in the Senate, use the most grotesque libels against you just because of your faith? Or the platforming on podcasts, on social media, of these people who are promoting violence and hate towards me, towards you, because of your faith? In 2025 America? On election night, watching the election of a man, 34 years old, who hates our country, hates it to the core. Who saddles up to imams who supported 9/11, to imams who are the most grotesque purveyors of Jew hatred, to care, a Hamas group that day in and day out is trashing Jews, who get support from Soros and billionaires, who get support from foreign countries. Can you imagine? Every day in the United States of America, this is going on. And then you have to hear, we don't cancel people. We don't deplatform people. When you're canceling an entire faith, Jews, when you're trying to deplatform an entire faith, Jews, maybe next time it's blacks, maybe next time it's Catholics, maybe next time it's Christians generally, or Italians, or Irish, or God knows what. All of this should be behind us, ladies and gentlemen. All of it. All of it. But it's not. It's here, right now. There are people, invited audience members, to Mondani's victory celebration, who are talking about deporting me. Deporting me for what? I've got to hear Bannon over there with his big, fat, filthy mouth about me as a Jew. I got to hear Carlson over there with his stupid, moronic, effeminate voice and statements about me. But let me tell you something. Let me tell them all. You're messing with the wrong guy. In fact, you're messing with the wrong people. I get stronger by the day. I hear it. I know what it is. I'm a student of history, not just American and modern history, but ancient history. I know what it is. And I know what happens if you don't stand up against it vigorously, aggressively, and repeatedly. I'm not going anywhere. And let me educate them briefly. The Babylonians couldn't kill the Jews. The Persians couldn't kill the Jews. The Romans couldn't kill the Jews. Hitler couldn't kill the Jews, and by this I mean eliminate them. You think your puny little asses are going to be able to do it? They're not. But I love this country, as do you. We cannot allow them to continue to try to poison it for their own grifting, for their own sick mental illness, for their own purposes. We Americans must stand up to this. All of us together, and reject it. The Marxism, the Islamism, the anti-Christianity, the anti-Semitism, the rewriting of history, the brainwashing our kids against our country, the attacks on our founding, the attacks on the greatest generation, Churchill, Reagan, and yes, they're stabbing Trump in the back too. We are strong, you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America. We are strong. Speak out. If you run an organization, if you're a pastor or a rabbi, or any kind of faith leader for that matter, silence is the enemy. If you're a believer in this country, if you're a believer in your faith, if you believe in God, if you go to church, you go to synagogue, wherever you go, You do it for a reason. And that reason is today. It's easy to talk about our country, Americanism, liberty, unalienable rights, our founders. Easy. During good times. And you know what? It's easier than you think to do it now, too. There are tens of millions of us. The Marxist Islamists, the fascist neo-Nazis, they cannot beat us unless we allow them to do it. If you run an organization, if you're a member of Congress, member of the administration, head of the Democrat Party, run a media outlet, and this is too hard for you, get out of the way. Get out of the way. And make room for people who have their morality screwed on right. And who have the courage to act and to speak out. If you're a radio host and this is too hard for you, get off the radio. If you're a television host and this is too hard for you, get off TV. Make room for somebody else. Now is not the time for quislings. Not now. There's just too damn much at stake. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Here, Mr. and Mrs. America, where we are strong and resolute, where we know where the North Star is, where we embrace our Bibles, where we pray to God, right here, where we believe in America, and we will take on all comers, period, without apology, without head fakes. We know right from wrong, good from evil, and liberty from tyranny. It's not complicated for you, Mr. and Mrs. America, and me, period. It's fact, it's quite simple. Behind this microphone, I also defend the Christian faith, among many other things. Now, why do I do that? The phrase is Judeo-Christian belief system. Joined at the hip. But what if you're not Jewish and you're not Christian? Why is that important? I've written about it in 3 books, including my last book on power. But to summarize, the Declaration of Independence is based on the Judeo-Christian belief system. Eternal truths, natural law, unalienable rights given to you by God, individual free will to do good, to do bad, and to be celebrated for the former and punished for the latter. And the Judeo-Christian belief system embraces the Enlightenment. What's the Enlightenment? The Enlightenment was also very, very crucially important. The great philosophers that your founding fathers embraced, John Locke, Montesquieu, the idea of limited government, power checking power, that the people are the sovereign, not a small cabal, not a faction. None of this would be possible without the joining of Judaism and Christianity as a basis for our belief system. Again, you don't have to be Jewish or Christian, or you can be Jewish and Christian, not particularly faithful in either, and that's okay in the sense that a society has been created in which you are free to do as you wish, as long as it's lawful and moral. You're free to do as you wish. That's not the same in other societies. They're founded on quite different bases. It's just not. And so the Christian faith is crucial, not just in our country, but throughout the world. So people who try to pervert Christianity because they so hate the Jews, these are very, very bad and evil people. Very bad and evil people. For Christians, the Bible is the Old and the New Testament. The Old and the New Testament, for a reason. For a great reason, a wonderful reason. So it's very important to understand this. So when people are attacking that association, people who don't really understand the Bible and don't care to understand the Bible, who are just evil and hateful, they're attacking this nation. They're also giving aid and comfort to the Islamists, like Mandani and his favorite podcasters and others. Because in the end, the jihadis, the radical Islamists, they reject Judaism, they reject Christianity, they reject the Enlightenment, they reject the Declaration and the Constitution, they reject our country, they reject our economic system, they reject our history. That's what was elected in New York. That's something we must combat. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Kazakhstan is joining the Abraham Accords, a overwhelmingly majority Muslim country. Of course, it's not in the Middle East, but it's a wonderful thing. See, my attitude is Saudi Arabia says, well, if you're not going to have a two states, I would ignore Saudi Arabia. If I were Israel, I would just try and get as many other countries as you can to join the Abraham Accords. And if Saudi Arabia is left out and Qatar is left out, so be it. Big deal. Here we have Mandami, a Mandami voter, in a video. Cut to, Mr. Producer, go.
All right, y'all, the Islamic Caliphate in New York starts now. That means we are all converting to Islam. I've already got one friend converted tonight. So the lines to begin conversion will begin tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. There will be mosques being built on every single block. But in the meantime, start outside my door. I am happy to help you convert, happy to be there on your journey. If you'd rather do it with somebody else, totally understand. You have to be safe, you have to be comfortable. But I'm so glad to have you, my brothers.
What is that, a bird or a dog or a hamster or something? Yeah, must be a bird. I don't believe she would like a dog, but nonetheless. There you go, folks. Then here's Bernie Sanders, the Stalinist. Cut 3, go.
And what Zoran has done is made it clear that at a time when we have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had, when the rich are getting much richer, while so many of our people are struggling.
It's just so easy to unravel and debate this man, but he won't come on. Mandami won't come on. AOC won't come on. It's just so easy and they go unchallenged. They say these things, they go unchallenged. It's just so frustrating. Go ahead.
Food on the table, pay for childcare, pay for the basic
How the hell do you
necessities.
think food is produced and put on the table? More tables in America than any other table in any other country, you stupid old buffoon. It really is just appalling to me. Just appalling to me. Go ahead.
What he is saying in New York City is, you know what? We are going to take on the oligarchs. We're not going to give them tax breaks.
And who are the oligarchs? Who are they? The trillionaires, Arab Muslim trillionaires in the Middle East, aren't they the oligarchs? Go ahead.
Pay attention to the working people of New York
All right,
City.
thank you. Thank you. That's enough. Then we have this. For all you folks out there who are Democrats, cut 4, go.
After seeing the results of last night's election, you have said that this is not just a New York City thing, which some people have dismissed his win as. Do you think Zohran Mamdani is a leader in the Democratic Party now?
Well, of course he is. He's going to be the mayor of the city of New York.
Of course he is. Van Jones, he's on CNN Tuesday. He thought that Mamdani's victory speech was appalling. Cut 5, go.
But I think he missed an opportunity. I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech. And I think that Mamdani is the one you need to hear from tonight. There are a lot of people trying to figure out, can I get on this train with him or not? Is he going to include me? Is he going to be more of a class warrior even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent. I think his tone was sharp. I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So
that's because the mask is off. Or the veil, I guess, but it's off now. It's off. That's why. He figures, what the hell, even if it's just 4 years, now I have 100% control, despite getting 52% of the vote. He's ready to roll. That's the truth. And the Democrats are falling in right behind him. And they will pay a price, I believe. I hope. We'll do everything we can to expose what this man is doing. And what he's doing, not just to the city of New York, the state of New York, but to the country. And he's not alone. As I said, we have a problem in our own tent. Not that these people on the neo-Nazi, fascist, radical right are in our tent. But they seek to take over our party the way Mamdani took over the Democrat Party. And there was no pushback in the Democrat Party. I will push back among conservatives in the Republican Party. Others are pushing back among conservatives in the Republican Party. Others are timid or acquiescing or giving cover to it. And just let me say, I am watching who these so-called presidents, CEOs, executive directors, and the rest, I am watching them. In these different entities that we've promoted, that others have promoted, that have reached out to you, the millions of people, through direct mail, through websites, through appearances on TV and so forth. This is important. This is not something that can be blown off, because we don't want our party, our movement turned into their party and that movement, because that will be an absolute disaster. How early can I break, Mr. Producer? I need a long segment because I want to read something from Victor Davis Hanson to this fantastic audience. All right, we're going to take a break now. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk. Embarrassed to say that the Victor Davis Hanson piece, which is fantastic, is fallen out of my email. So I won't be able to present that to you right now. Maybe at the top of the hour I can find it. But he's absolutely fantastic in this this free press piece. So I'll summarize it. It's a long piece. He goes through the history of anti-Semitism, and keep in mind he's not Jewish. But he's worried about his country, as we are. Our country. And he takes a 2x4 to his old friend Tucker Carlson, who used to platform him, and they talked at length about many things, including immigration. And he talked about how the right, conservatism, thought that they had killed this cancer, this poison, that Bill Buckley, in dealing with the John Birch Society, and Pat Buchanan, and Joseph Sobran, among others, had really cleared the field of the anti-Semites on the right. And that lasted for a long time, half a century, give or take. But now they're back. And he says they're back in the form of Tucker Carlson and his ilk. And that they need to be stood up to. They need to be denounced without equivocation. Victor Davis Hanson. He has written about what he calls the new anti-Semitism on the left, and this is what he calls the new anti-Semitism on the right. It's all based on the old anti-Semitism, but it's got a new charge of energy. A new charge of energy. As one person said to me today, the Luddites are back. The Luddites. And they are. But the good news is they don't represent you and me, and they're not in the majority. But they don't have to be in the majority to be dangerous and cancerous. And so when I see really a good friend, I call him America's wise man, Victor Davis Hanson, standing up, speaking out. When I see Professor Robert George of Princeton, one of the great, great thinkers, and layman that writes brilliantly about the Catholic Church, being Catholic, of course. When he writes in the pages of National Review and is posted on social media, his contempt for people or anybody or movements that do not treat human beings as equals. In other words, that dehumanizes human beings. He said that's the core of this. And no American, let alone conservative, should tolerate it or sit silently when hearing it or seeing it, let alone paying for it with these podcasters and others of that sort. So you're starting to see, and Victor's been at this for weeks now, God bless him. So has Professor George, God bless him. The pages of the American Spectator, our buddy Bob Tiro and his folks, fantastic. National Review, fantastic. Breitbart has done a fantastic job. I can't name them all because I can't remember everybody. The Free Press, of course, and others who merit mention, and I will mention as time goes on. These are important voices. These are important people. Just so you know, we're not alone. There are millions of us. And those who've actually believed in what they have written, what they have said over the course of decades are speaking out. Those who were pretenders are trying to figure out what to do. It's really not hard. You don't have to figure out what to do. You do what's right. That's what you do. I'm proud of those who are doing just that. And we will continue to give them a platform and continue to give them voice. Unfortunately, I cannot, at least at this moment, at this time, find that piece by Victor Davis Hanson, but it is a fantastic piece. Same with Robbie George, Professor George, short and sweet. I would say those who are calling me, who lead various organizations, and sharing their views, I would encourage you to speak out. Because your numbers are multiplying, and if there's safety in numbers, you'll be safe. As time goes on, and you can't be counted, then there's no reason to support you. We've had great columnists, Cal Thomas, who was fantastic. Fantastic. We've had the Haggies. We've had other pastors and leaders, unbelievably good. Tony Perkins, fantastic. So many others. Again, by passing on this, by not mentioning them, I'm not passing on it. My wife comes to the rescue, Julie. She found the article, Mr. Producer. What would I do without her? Seriously. Jew hatred was once confined to the fringes of the right. He says, what changed? Till recently, centuries-long right-wing anti-Semitism seemed bestial in America. The Republican Party and conservative leaders like William F. Buckley Jr. had mostly marginalized anti-Semites and their fellow travelers. According to recent polls, March 2025, the Gallup survey, Republicans as a group still expressed overwhelmingly positive views of Israel, 83%. In sharp contrast to Democrats, utterly anemic, 33%. That party's dead. It's been taken over. Right-wing anti-Semitic remnants were thought to be confined to a few fringe groups online or poultry, ossified clan-like cabals. Given the history of European pogroms and the nightmare of the Third Reich, and its unapologetic racial and religious hatred, right-wing anti-Semitism had always been more easily identifiable, cruder variant than the insidious and now frequent left-wing anti-Semitism. The latter, especially commonplace on campuses and entrenched within the base of the Democrat Party, has cloaked itself in idealistic social justice causes. It is embedded into diversity, equity, and inclusion identity politics and humanitarian quote-unquote outrage over supposed Israeli settler colonialism, genocide, and apartheid. After all, who in 2025 could not be against settler colonialists who practiced genocide? When it was revealed that a recent Democrat Senate candidate in Maine, Graham Plantner, an outspoken critic of Israel, had tattooed his chest with death's head, an emblem of the Nazi SS 3rd Panzer Division, there was only mild response from Democrat elected officials. And despite his inconsistent and contradictory explanations for the Nazi insignia, which he has now covered up, almost no calls for him to exit the race. It's the presence of left-wing anti-Semitism. If it is explained in part by identity politics. What explains the return of crusader right-wing cousin of it, or at least its appearance on high-profile conservative podcasts and social media? Blogger Darryl Cooper, implausibly proclaimed by Tucker Carlson as perhaps the best and most honest popular historian in the United States, quote-unquote, claimed on Carlson's podcast that Adolf Hitler's armies in 1941 did not really intend either to starve or murder hundreds of thousands of Jews, Ukrainians, and Russian prisoners, even though there is a trove of documentation showing premeditated Nazi assumptions of and plans for precisely such mass death. Why would Nick Fuentes, who at times in the past has praised both Hitler and Joseph Stalin, call for a holy war against Jews and deny the Holocaust, remain unchallenged by Carlson on the same venue? A variety of reasons can explain this recent surge of anti-Semitism vitriol on the right. First, anti-Semitism in the last 2 decades has been mainstreamed by the left on college campuses. Indeed, the once unthinkable in America has now become commonplace, chasing Jews in libraries, barring them from areas of campus, physically assaulting them, and calling for their extermination. This is Victor Davis Hanson. Right-wing anti-Semites sense that such flagrant attacks and bullying went largely unpunished by authorities, they apparently reason such exemptions would likely be extended to them too. And I want to go on with this piece again. This is one of the great minds of conservatism and Americanism, Victor Davis Hanson, who's had it up to here. More when I return. There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk. Continuing with Victor Davis Hanson's tour de force. He goes on. The reason for anti-Semitism on the alluded right. Second, the epidemic of diversity, equity, and inclusion victimhood has spread well beyond higher education to the workplace and popular culture. The DEI creed postulates that those on the victimized side of the Marxist oppressed-oppressors binary should be assumed to be incapable of oppressing anyone, even or especially when they overtly demonize Israel-supporting Jews. Some on the right apparently felt they could freely voice suppressed venom against Jews because they now assume that some on the left might welcome their views, and many on the right would either keep mum in the interests of no enemies on the right, quote-unquote, and that kind of ideological unity, feel anti-Semitism was a mere passing distraction, or be reluctant to endanger past friendships and associations. Third, melting pot assimilation and the veritable end of Jewish immigration means for all the talk of the Jewish lobby. It is likely, at least demographically, going the way of the once influential Greek lobby that is now rarely mentioned. He's talking about the fact that Jews are becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. In sharp contrast, the Arab and Muslim populations of more than 3.7 million are not just increasing rapidly in the United States, but are already projected in the next decade alone to surpass the current number of about 7.5 million American Jews. More importantly, many Arabs in the fashion of past immigrant and minority communities are often concentrated in swing and electorally important states such as Michigan, New Jersey, and Virginia. And this is what we saw play out on election night that nobody's talking about because they don't have the guts to do it. New Jersey, and Virginia. Demographically, then, this also explains the parameters of the permissible. There's a final and most important catalyst that now fuels new rightist anti-Semitism, one that will eventually involve a war for the hearts and minds of the Make America Great Again movement. The infighting is reminiscent of the America First efforts of Father Charles Coughlin and Charles Lindbergh to keep America out of World War II and to blunt the purported efforts of powerful American Jews to, quote, drag us into it. Among Trump's MAGA base, there's been a growing rivalry between Jacksonians like Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz, and the neo-isolationists such as Steve Bannon, Carlson, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Boy, she's lost her mind, hasn't she? No, she hasn't. She's never had one. The latter, for now, meaning Marjorie Taylor Greene, they have largely lost out politically. That is, Bannon, Carlson, and Greene, as Donald Trump has become not just the most pro-Israel president in history, but the most effective in weakening the Middle East enemies of both the United States and Israel. He has systematically neutered the Iranian nuclear program, hit the Houthis hard, retaliated against terrorists in Syria, destroyed ISIS and its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, and green-lighted Israeli retaliations, all without crossing the MAGA red line of fighting on the ground in so-called optional foreign wars abroad. Rather than concede Trump was always a don't-tread-on-me Jacksonian, no better friend or worse enemy, the neo-isolationists often blame Israel, and me, quite frankly, and inferring that the Jewish lobby and the Christian Zionists, quote-unquote, are culpable for confusing Trump and dragging him into quagmires to protect Israel. And by the way, the American Conservative magazine, which is neither American nor conservative, as some have said, an entrail of the Buchanan era, has an entire front page saying, J.D. Vance, you're the guy that can eliminate Israel from our foreign policy. And I'm hoping J.D. responds to that, and quickly. He should. Rather than concede Trump was always a don't-tread-on-me Jacksonian, the neo-isolationists often blame Israel. You can see this with Bannon. You can see this with Carlson. You can see it with Marjorie Taylor Greene. You can see it with all of them. They're a disgusting disgrace. They vent their frustration that Trump's calibrated interventions have been both successful and mostly popular, especially concerning Israel. Apparently, they cannot convincingly fought the results on grounds either that they are unpopular or have hurt America's own interests. Instead, they argue America has acted mostly on the prompt of Jewish donors or their Christian Zionist sympathizers, or perhaps high-profile Jews in the Trump cabinet and inner circle, such as top White House advisor Stephen Miller, special envoys Witkoff and Kushner, Commerce Secretary Lutnick, or maybe the EPA agency director Zeldin. Yep. So how does the current right-wing anti-Semitism now manifest itself? Ironically, in the form of American firsters, who fought both America, past and present, in much of Trump's America First movement. There are attempts to claim historical, even scholarly, precedents for our current allegedly wrong-headed support for Israel and, by extension, vulnerability to undue Jewish influence. Occasionally, rightists cite World War II to find a thinly disguised parallel that we once again are fighting the wrong enemies on behalf of the wrong people at the wrong time, comparable to the tragic mistakes, they say, of 1941. Then the U.S. purportedly had foolishly allied with the Soviet Union against Nazi Germany, supposedly due to the influence of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Jewish advisors and donors. Of course, Roosevelt was not pro-Jewish advisor or donors. In this incoherent narrative, writes Victor Davis Hanson, just as we have backed the wrong Israeli horse and alienated hundreds of millions of Middle East Muslims, they say, replete with a vast oil wealth and who, when aggrieved, conduct anti-Western terrorist attacks, so too we must misunderstood and unduly demonized Hitler's Germany. Foolishly, America was persuaded by Jews at home and British pro-Zionists and imperialists abroad to empower our real enemy, Stalin, not Hitler. Now, the conclusion of this storyline, writes Victor Davis Hanson, was a 50-year post-war World War II Cold War with the Soviets, near nuclear Armageddon, and the counterproductive destruction of a misunderstood European Nazi Germany. For all the Third Reich's excesses, quote unquote, they say it was really trying, as Joseph Goebbels had insisted, merely to defend Europe and its white Western civilization from the marauding Bolshevik Jewish-driven Mongols of the eastern slopes. To conduct such a fable, Winston Churchill, whose Great Britain alone fought the Nazis and fascists from June 22, 1940 to June 22, 1941, must be reduced to a terrorist who unfairly bombed German cities. He's really destroying Tucker Carlson and these phony historians he brings on, just obliterating them. Victor Davis Hanson writes that the British resorted to firebombing after initially costly but anemic retaliation to the Blitz, were later joined by the U.S. Army Air Forces and fought for a cause of consensual government against dictatorships or passed over. Also ignored are the routine Nazi and Imperial Japanese slaughter of prisoners, the meticulously planned Holocaust, the starvation or murder of some 30 million Chinese and Russian civilians. As a natural result of such politically driven revisionism, the brilliance and courage of 12 million-person American liberation military in defeating all its enemies in less than 4 years becomes transmogrified into the naivete of near useful idiots, ultimately often dying for a terrible cause. His second paradox is the right-wing anti-Semitic ideological alignment with both the enemies of the United States and the left-wing opponents of conservative Republicans. Abroad, the views of the anti-Israel right have become near indistinguishable from the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, while Jew hatred and generic racism are manifested domestically in Fuentes' past attacks on the late conservative hero Charlie Kirk and his current derision of the ethnicity of the wife and children of Vance. Dislike of Israel and demonization of the Jews also appear as spiritual twins to radical Islam, whose followers have killed more Americans than any nation or cabal since Vietnam. Let me repeat that. Radical Islam has killed more Americans than any nation or cabal since Vietnam. It's no accident that anti-Western Islamic terrorists who murder in Europe and the U.S. consider Israel its most proximate Western surrogate, given it is the only Western consensual government-free society in the entire Middle East and by far the most pro-American society. Now, most conservatives are also deeply and understandably suspicious of the United Nations for reasons that transcend its hatred for Israel. But the views of right-wing anti-Semites on the Middle East dovetail closely with those of the General Assembly and its UN Human Rights Council, such as it is. They currently include the likes of China, Cuba, and Sudan. It would be hard to distinguish much of the rhetoric of radically left campus groups who attack the Trump administration and its Christian Zionists, quote-unquote, from the new right-wing anti-Semites. When Mamdani brags he will supersede federal law and arrest on sight a visiting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his view of the elected Prime Minister seems akin to views now commonly expressed by some on the right. Bannon. A third manifestation of conservative anti-Semitism, writes Victor Davis Hanson, is a growing insistence that Israel has done little for the U.S. and does not share many, if any, of the same enemies. Yet both the U.S. and Europe have their own reasons to prevent the Iranian theocracy from attaining a nuclear weapon, ensuring it did not and was not made far easier once the Israel Air Forces destroyed Tehran's air defenses and took up its top generals and physicists. Hezbollah has slaughtered Americans for decades in Lebanon and bombed both our embassies and Marine barracks. That is now crippled, largely thanks to Israel, done without the presence of any American troops on the ground in Lebanon. America's own security is enhanced by Israeli diminishment of both the Houthis and Hamas. Fourth, to form any coherent anti-Semitic or anti-Israel narrative, omission, disingenuousness, and selectivity are essential. When Tucker Carlson interviewed Pastor Munther Isaac, an Arab Christian cleric from Bethlehem, who justified the October 7 attacks, Isaac offered a preposterous theory of Israeli-inspired expulsions of Christians from his historic city. Yet even the simplest of clarifications were never demanded from Isaac. Why did the Christian share of the city suddenly drop to 10% of the population? Well, mostly under Palestinian governance of the Judea and Samaria. Why are Christian populations in the Muslim world shrinking but growing in Israel? Why are there far more Arab Christians living now in Israel than in the so-called West Bank and Gaza Strip combined? We hear from such commentators on the right that Israel practiced genocide against the people of Gaza. But how can a military respond to the peacetime premeditated slaughter of 1,200 of its own citizens when the perpetrators flee underground with hostages into a vast, multi-mile, hundreds of miles of vast Lambert tunnels with entries and exits disguised beneath hospitals, mosques, and schools? In the 2004 fashion of the American block-by-block near leveling of Fallujah, Iraq, or the often tragically inaccurate 1944 bombing of Nazi forces embedded in the occupied France that killed tens of thousands of French civilians, those were our bombs. Or the Marines' 1945 costly systematic incineration of Imperial Japanese troops hunkered down in the multitude of subterranean caverns in Okinawa, often with thousands and thousands of Japanese civilians? And he goes on at further length. And I would need another 20 or 30 minutes. He's had enough. I've had enough. Cal Thomas has had enough. So many have had enough. Just tell the truth. Have the guts. These are not our friends. They're not somebody we look up to. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the great one.
The great one, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
By the way, you know what else this election showed us? There's only one Donald Trump. And there's only going to be one Donald Trump. Now, that's a little frightening, isn't it? Because we got to figure out what we're going to do after Donald Trump. And this is part what the battle's about. Future of the country, the Republican Party, and our conservative movement. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. President of the United States wants you to know some actual facts and information about what's taking place in the economy and so forth, because he'll never get a break from the media, that's for sure. So let's check this out. He's in the Oval Office today. Cut 7. Go.
So Walmart, to me, you know, that's AAA, came out that nobody going to influence them. I don't know them. But they just came out with a very powerful statement. They've done it for many years, that under the Biden administration, Thanksgiving meal, a Thanksgiving meal with all the trimmings, cost 25% more. In other words, our Thanksgiving this year coming up will cost 25% less than sleepy Joe Biden's. Now, to me, that's better than anything there is. That's better than a poll. They've got everything included, from the trimmings and from the turkey and from everything, a lot of different items. It's 25% less this year than it was last year when he was so-called in charge. He wasn't in charge. The people around the desk were in charge. The Autopen was in charge. That is a big factor. And I was angry last night with the Republicans. They say, you don't talk about this stuff. Nobody talks about it.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot they don't talk about, but one of the things that I just mentioned to you that nobody seems to talk about is Donald Trump is a unique, not just politician, he's a unique person who is truly liked. I don't care about Hollywood and the media and so forth. They're not representative of the public generally. And you gotta pick really good candidates to run for different positions as well. But he is, and I've told you over and over, a historic and an iconic figure. And we just to make sure that when he's finished, which he will be in 2028, stop listening to that fraud, bloated Bannon. Please, enough of this guy. He's a mess. And worse. We're going to have to make sure that we nominate somebody, and I'm not saying who or how or when and so forth, who can actually win. And then one of the reasons we're fighting the Luddites, the neo-Nazis, the fascists, who are trying to assert themselves, is because we need to win not just the next election, but election after election after election. Cut 8, go.
They talk about affordability. They don't have affordability. We had the highest inflation in the history of our country under Biden. We had high gasoline prices at $4.50, $5 a gallon. They're going to be hitting $2 a gallon with me. They're getting close to $2 a gallon. And when gasoline goes down and energy goes down, everything else follows. What the Democrats do is they lie. We are the ones that have done great on affordability. They've done horribly on affordability. The only thing is they go out and they take commercials how under the Democrats you have affordability. It's just the opposite. We have much lower prices than they do. And we only have one thing, beef, because the cattle ranches are doing well. We're going to bring the beef prices down, and they understand that, even if we have to help them out. But the beef also is not a big difference. But every price is down. The biggest price is energy. We're at almost $2 for gasoline, and you take a look at where they were at $4.50, $5 for gasoline. And when gasoline and energy comes down, everything else follows. And I was so happy last night. I made a speech, and then I get off the stage. I said I feel like going up and saying it because I have a lot of respect for Walmart, and nobody's influencing Walmart. They came out and they said, Trump's Thanksgiving dinner, same things, is 25% less than Biden's. And we are the affordability when we are the ones that have done a great job in affordability, not the Democrats. And yet we just lost a couple of elections that were very Democrat areas. Maybe it won't be full. They weren't very Democrat when I ran a year ago because I did well in those areas. But we just lost an election, they said, based on affordability. It's a con job.
I don't agree that it was based only on affordability. For the reasons I said, the reasons Victor Davis Hanson also said, you've had large upticks in migration in these states, into Virginia, into New Jersey. It's a lot of reasons. But if you look at New Jersey, I don't think that affordability was the key issue. You want to know why New Jersey? Because a large majority of your fellow citizens in New Jersey voted for the Democrats, and they're the ones that have the massive increases in property taxes and electricity bills. So when your fellow citizen, not you, Mr. and Mrs. America, who listen to this program, but these others who vote for Democrats, if affordability was the issue, why would they vote for the very people who've controlled the legislature for 20 years and the governorship for at least 8, who've created these conditions of high energy, electricity bills, and high property taxes? I think the same reason you have New York City. Yet about 2/3 of those who are not born in the United States, who came into the United States and settled in New York, voting for Mamdani, Marxism and socialism. And I think you have the same thing going on in New Jersey, Michigan, Virginia, and so forth and so on. It's very hard to persuade people who come into the country are not used to capitalism, are not used to the American system. And when they hear the same that they're used to when they grew up, even though they left it and ran to the United States, nonetheless, when they hear this stuff about, free rent, free buses, free this, free that, they're attracted to it. They're attracted to it. Now, I want to focus in a little bit on this, the president talking about tariffs as a national security issue. Go ahead, cut down, please.
It really is a defensive mechanism. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be unable to defend ourselves.
So then do you agree then that Americans are paying those tariffs?
I think, no, I don't agree. I think that they might be paying something, but when you take the overall impact, the Americans are gaining tremendously. They're gaining through national security. Look, I'm ending war because of these tariffs. Americans would have to fight in some of these wars. They're gaining in national security. They're gaining in economics. They're gaining in so many different ways. And they're gaining in self-respect for our own country. Other countries used to laugh at us. They would charge us tariffs. Japan was charging us massive tariffs, and yet they wouldn't allow our cars to be sold in Japan. But they were selling 9 million cars here, but they wouldn't allow one car. Not one car was sold in Japan. They don't laugh at us anymore. This is really a matter of, this is national security. And by the way, going bankrupt is national security. Our country was really in trouble. Going bankrupt, and the difference between going bankrupt and thriving, that's also national security. When you go bankrupt, when you don't have any money, you have no national security.
I really want you to check in with Saturday's show, Life, Liberty, and Levin. What I do there is I basically take all the arguments that these justices made and I counter them, I respond to them. And so I think you're going to find it, even beyond what I did last night, I think you're going to find it very compelling. And we have Elise Stefanik, who is always compelling, to talk about New York and all the rest of it. And then we have Gene Hamilton, who's the muckety-muck, the president, one of the founders, along with Stephen Miller of America First Legal. He does an exceptional job. We talk about the Comey case and all the texts that came out and so forth and so on. So I think you're going to love the show on Saturday. You want to hear the Sunday show? We have Senator Ted Cruz and Governor Ron DeSantis. So these are all big shows. They're weekend programs. So I don't want to waste your time or my time. I never have any more than 2 guests a show, and more I've been having 1 guest a show. And I do that so we can dig deeply and do things a little differently than others might. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Call board is full. It's been full. Some people are waiting a very long time, so let me jump to it early. Let us go to let's see, Nick, Havelock, North Carolina, on the Levin app. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you, Mark?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I was just calling because I've heard a lot of talk about like the Nazis and whatever, and I remember learning that the Nazis thought that Jewish people in their DNA made them, disgusting, right?
So these guys lie to get through, so we have to dump them. So we'll be getting this too, but we'll keep moving. If you're going to try something like, just don't be a coward. Just call. Let's go. And so now we have neo-Nazi supporters. Let's go to Ryan, Dayton, Ohio, on the Mark Levin app. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you?
Okay.
Big fan. Love your show on Fox. I've been watching you for about 6 years now.
Thank you, man.
Right now it feels like so many people are filled with hatred nowadays. And it seems like a lot of this is stemming from from a lot of evil forces like Nick Fuentes.
Let's try another one. Let us go to Tim in California, the Mark Levin app. Go.
Hey, am I on air, Mark? How are you?
Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, a lot of crazy people on here tonight. That's unfortunate. Anyway, I just wanted to say I can't believe this Zoran clown got elected in the city the other day. You know, I think one of the leading reasons people are voting for him is this rise in anti-Semitism.
Happened now is the numbers being given out, right, Mr. Producer? It's a coordination from the gropers. Maybe we'll do that to them. So that's what's going on. The gropers are in, and so we're not going to go to the calls. We're just going to continue to press the case. Let's see here. Now, the president on tariffs. Why is this important? Think this through. If the president loses this case in a substantial way, who's going to make decisions about tariffs? People, well, Congress does. So Congress is going to make a decision about tariffs for every circumstance regarding every country. But why should Congress make those decisions? Well, power of the purse. Well, the president just said a lot of these decisions are made based on national security reasons. We know, for instance, with Communist China, the decision was made. Why? The decision was made to counter China's massive tariff increase on these rare earth minerals that we need for our missiles, that we need for our computers, and so forth and so on. So tariffs are not, in and of themselves, intended to tax the citizenry. It may be a revenue generator, as the president has said, as others have said. But tariffs are used for a multitudinous number of reasons. They just are. And so when it comes to national security, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to international economics and so forth and so on, the president has to make these decisions. Now, that said, if Congress believes that the president's going too far, what can Congress do? You can use the power of the purse. It can pass a statute. But it's not using the power of the purse, and it's not passing a statute. And your reply might be, well, that's because his party controls Congress. Yeah, that's how republicanism works. That's how it works. Now, what about separation of powers? It shouldn't matter who votes for whom. True. But what about separation of powers? As I just said, tariffs have multiple implications, including, for instance, reindustrializing certain areas of America. What's the difference between a quota and a tariff? According to Sotomayor, there's a difference. There's no difference in the sense that if a tariff is considered a tax for purposes of trying to deny the president the authority to act, the purpose of a quota is to limit the amount of products, similar products, from coming into our country to drive up the price to protect a certain industry. That's what quotas are. Now, if that's a tax, then the quotas are a tax. So how can it be, as she suggests, that quotas are constitutional if the president institutes them unilaterally, but not tariffs? I mean, I'm just dealing with the logic of their arguments and what they're saying. And then, of course, the issue of regulations. Regulations are a tax. In fact, they're a massive tax. They affect really every corner of the country. Okay, well, that said, if that's the case, how is it that regulations in the executive branch, we're not even talking about Congress, we're not really even talking about the president, since he's not involved in every regulation. He doesn't even have to sign off on them. So the bureaucracy issuing regulations, raising our taxes, then how is it that that's constitutional? It's a tax. every bit as much as a tariff or a quota as a tax. I think the Supreme Court justices need to be very, very careful how they deal with this. Very careful. All right, let's do this quickly. Let's see what happens. Billy, Minneapolis, Minnesota, XM Satellite, go.
Yes, sir. Hey, Mr. Levin, it is such an honor, sir. I'll tell you, my son is 16, and for his birthday, we gave him all of your books. And I'll tell you, I haven't gotten him the new one yet, but I'm a pastor here in Minneapolis, and I'll tell you, the election, even now, I am so adamant about. You don't have to name names, but we can go issues, and we can go, hey, this is what's going on in our country, and this is what's going on in our community. And obviously, Minneapolis is just, it's horrible, right? It's horrible. And I don't know why. These people, they're just not getting it. You know, they're just not. And I have friends who are pastors, and they refuse to even mention Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, why? And they're so afraid to offend. And
well, I want to thank you, Pastor, because you're a strong voice, as all pastors need to be and should be, all faith leaders. And God bless you, my friend. I mean that. We'll be right back.
Blasting conservative fire. The Mark Levin Show. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
You know, Mr. Producer, these gropers are so stupid, they're going to actually wind up increasing my radio ratings. Do you realize that? Let's listen in. What did he say? Let's call it. Hey, Adolf. Yes, Goebbels. Yes. Yes, are you there? Himmler. Yes, yes. Little Adolf. What is it? Get ready. So they're listening. Now, they're not going to learn anything. They're just too stupid. They're too stupid, looking in a mirror, drilling in their mustaches, working out their salutes. But they're flooding in, so they're listening. So I want to thank them for increasing my ratings, which are already sky high, but thank you. Sick bastards, we appreciate your assisting me. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We got to take New York back. We've got to take New York City back from the 7th century barbarians, whether it's Marxism, Islamism, anti-Judaism, anti-Christianity, anti-Americanism. We have to take it back. And that's why you need an Elise Stefanik as the governor, and the word is she's going to announce tomorrow. And she will have her full support. And she will be opposed by the Marxist Islamists. She will be opposed by the neo-Nazi fascists on the extreme right, the extreme left. And we, red-blooded Americans all over the country, as well as in the state of New York, will be pushing her hard. Because a governor has certain powers over mayors and over cities. And the deal is that they're going to need to use those powers, and they're going to need to use the courts, and they're going to need to bring lawsuits, just like the left does. We need to do it to them. Anything and everything possible to throw logs on the railroad tracks, figuratively speaking, but you know what I mean. That is absolutely crucial. And it's going to have to be done. So there is a bright spot here. There really is. And that is Elise Stefanik. She's conservative. She's moral. She loves the country. She's a fighter. She's a great debater. Hochul. She jumped in with Mamdani. She endorsed him. Of course, he hasn't endorsed her, but so be it. And she will not do what needs to be done to protect the citizens in New York City who didn't vote. And there's maybe a million of them or more, for the destruction of their own city and their own lifestyle. So keep that in mind, too. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen to these headlines right now. Oops. There we go. I got it. Ready? New Jersey arrests 2 ISIS-linked terrorists allegedly planning anti-Semitic attacks. Next. Second Afghan national arrested in Denmark over terror plot targeting Jews in Germany. Next. British man suspected of being Hamas terror cell member arrested in London. And I can go on and on. I can go on and on. It's coming to a town near you, ladies and gentlemen. A town near you. When those Twin Towers were blown up, that wasn't aimed at Israel, that wasn't aimed at Jews, that was aimed at America. Those were 3,000 Americans who died that day of all kinds of backgrounds and faiths. It didn't matter. We have a massive counterterrorism enterprise in this country and infrastructure. Hundreds of billions of dollars to protect us, the United States of America, from terrorists who mostly come from these jihadi Islamist backgrounds. That's just the truth. I'll tell you what, Mr. Producer, how many callers do we have? Just Ivan. Let's bring our man Ivan in. Ivan, who's now in Florida, I believe. Ivan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Mark. I'm still a little angry about the election. I know, yeah, Mark. I know it's Democrat states, but you know, you always say, Mark, that language and words matter. Mm-hmm. And if we start the debate, you know, whether Mondani is a Democrat, socialist, or a communist, we've already lost. He's an anti-Semitic, Hamas-loving Muslim Democrat, and that's how we should refer to him. He's a Jew hater, Mark, and we need to be bold enough to say that. Mark, you know, Obama, you know, was horrific. Biden was worse than Obama with the 20 million illegals. And now if this new iteration of Democrat ever gets into power, Mark, our country is going to be destroyed. They're going to, you know, he's going to make Biden look like Mary Poppins.
Here's what I'm worried about, Ivan, that they will get into power and we won't be able to stop them because we have this. We have these elements on the right who are trying to kneecap us and prevent us from engaging these elements on the left. And this is a fifth column of neo-Nazis, a fifth column of fascists who dress up as if they're actually America first when they're not America anything. They're garbage. And so this is a big problem that we all have to address. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, I was going to say a couple things real quick. As I was against Trump getting rid of the filibuster, you know, but you know, I'm starting to think all over that. You know, let
me just tell you this, Ivan. I threw out the idea. I think others are starting to pick up on it. I don't want to throw out the filibuster completely because the Democrats will use that to destroy our institutions. But how about a very laser-focused suspension of the filibuster when it comes to continuing resolutions? That's the problem. I mean, if the Democrats take a majority, they may get rid of the filibuster anyway. I don't think we should do that for them as a general matter, but why not do it in a very focused manner when it comes to these kinds of things? Because now the Democrats are turning continuing resolutions into blackmail. That's what it is. You either give us what we want or we're not going to support what is a basic ministerial funding act that they're now turning into a tool, into a weapon. So that's my view. The Democrat Party's changed. It is very evil. And I want to thank you, Ivan. You're a great patriot and a great friend and loyal. We appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who've bought the book, American Marxism, I encourage you to go back to it this evening and over the weekend and page through it. You'll see that all the things I talked about in there are coalescing and happening, unfortunately. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and we, the American people, red-blooded Americans. And I want to thank all the reprobates out there who are listening. helping my ratings.